So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Who Talks First. I am one of your hosts, CT.
I'm your other host, Solo.
And today is the episode you've all been waiting for. And by mostly you all, it's us, because I've just been dying to want to talk about this so badly.
How dare you go on vacation for a little bit longer, because I wanted to talk about this. Not that you didn't even have a voice.
I didn't. No, we couldn't have even done it even if we wanted to, because I could not talk. And maybe that was why, like, the gods, like we're gonna
They were like,
take away your voice.
Rest your pipes
because
until you can go home and podcast.
You're gonna want to talk about this forever. So we're finally going to talk about what we saw at the Last Jedi panel at Star Wars Celebration.
Yep.
Which includes the amazing poster that we got and the trailer, our teaser trailer itself. So we're going to start off talking about the poster, just like they did at Celebration. Which, again, I mentioned in our podcast yesterday that one of my favorite moments is when Ryan's like, we have something very special to show you guys, and everyone's on the edge of their seat.
But yeah,
we're so ready.
Comes the trailer.
We're so ready. And he's like, all right, guys, get ready. We're going to show you guys
and it was
the
just
world
Ray.
premiere of the poster. And everyone's like, oh. But the poster, honestly, to me was, I mean, I loved the teaser, but this poster
just
was
staring
everything
at this poster, because I'm like, just look at the red going into the blue, and it's purple in the middle, and it kind of like meets and balances in the middle.
It's so good.
Ugh.
Like, we have a reference in front of us just to talk about it a little bit, but so good.
You should just have it be. You should just have the poster be the background for the podcast for the people who are watching on YouTube. They just are forced to look at it.
You need to look at it because it's beautiful. So they revealed the poster to us, and it started off on like the close up of Rey, and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
I was like, oh, okay, a little Thundercats.
Yes, very Thundercats.
I was like, okay, interesting choice, but then they zoomed out.
And people are screaming their heads off, including myself. And
the girl that I was with, because I watched it in a streaming room. Not the streaming room. I watched it in our hotel. We were live streaming it. You were in the actual room. One of the girls I was eating breakfast with, she flipped out because she thought Kylo was Anakin. She got so excited. And I was like, it's not. It's supposed to look like that, though. It's poetic.
Oh, yeah.
It's super poetic. And I don't think you're stupid for thinking that, because I thought it was Anakin for a hot sex joke.
It took me a second to realize that it was Kylo.
I was like, what? Oh, that's Kylo. Spike.
You and your spikes, god damn it.
I'm very animated.
You are. But, so we have the big faces of Luke and Kylo, like, in the Starscape, which I find interesting. They're behind the Starscape, so they're, like, literally just in the sky. It's poetic. But
the Skywalkers?
Oh, god damn it.
They're the Skywalkers! That's why they're in the sky, and she's not. Because she's not a Skywalker.
There's no stars in front of her.
Nope.
So, obviously we have half-face Luke, half-face Kylo. Very interesting that they chose, I hate to be this person, they chose Kylo's good side.
Yep, they did. They didn't show his scar.
And especially when you have a poster that is only showing half of the faces, you think for sure they're going to show the side with the scar.
That's a conscious choice.
Obviously. And maybe it was more an aesthetic thing. We do know the scar changed because of aesthetic reasons.
But no, because if you're going to do it for aesthetic reasons, you're definitely going to show his bad side if he's supposed to represent the bad.
And they've already revealed the scar, so it's not like
it's a spoiler.
And just a little kitty scratch.
Just a little,
where he's like, I look like grandpa now, yes! So he's in, like, the Bacta tank, and they're like, it's gonna scar a little bit. And he's like, just a little bit? Just pulls up a picture of Anakin, like this? And they're like, yeah, just
perfect. That's what I want.
Exactly what I wanted.
No, it healed, and he went back to, like, a plastic surgeon, and he was like, they healed my scar. I want something like this. So he pulls out a picture of Anakin, and the guy's like, all right, where do you want it? He's like, oh, a little bit over, I don't want it to highlight my nose.
More, like, over the eye?
I'm a little insecure about my nose, so, I mean, my grandpa had it on his eye, but I don't want to exactly copy him. The guy was like, I know what you want.
I got it, don't worry.
It's actually just a tattoo. It's not even a scar.
I just, like, and part of Scargate was so funny because people were thinking that maybe this was a whole new scar, like,
no.
Something, obviously not, guys. They just moved it for aesthetic reasons.
Yes.
And we've been talking about this, probably in later editions of The Force Awakens DVD and Blu-ray, they're probably going to edit the scar that Kylo gets.
I agree.
Obviously, we know George Lucas to be a person that fixes it way, way, way in post.
Yeah.
So I think...
Fixes it! Because, oh my god.
Some fixes were not great.
Some of those were awful.
But I think they'll probably go back. But we have Rey on the poster, front and center, very much the Luke Skywalker pose in the New Hope original poster. And even with the, like, starburst
all she needs is Kylo wrapped around her leg. And
that, oh my god, what I would give.
Have people not drawn that yet?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
What? That's like, guys, fan artists out there, you're disappointed me because that's obviously what this needs. Is Kylo with his, like, in his dress.
Kylo or, like, Finn or Poe, like, one of them just in their Leia dress.
Yeah, but I mean, Kylo's the one that wears a dress, so Kylo needs to be around her leg.
Kylo's in the dress. But she is, like, has the legacy saber, it's shooting up, and we see that it starts off as blue and kind of turns to red. Yeah. Which... Yeah. This is exactly what I want from this movie. Yeah. And also, I found it so intriguing that both Luke and Kylo are both so embossed in red. Because all of us are going into this thinking that Luke's obviously still this beacon of light. Mm-hmm. And that he really didn't do anything wrong. He just feels guilty. Mm-hmm. He just feels guilt rather than... doing...
that he actively did something wrong, that he actively made a mistake.
Mm-hmm. And so that makes me even more excited. I mean, I love Luke. I adore Luke. And I do think probably there's some things that are going to happen in this movie that if I personally directed it, I'd be like, Luke wouldn't do this. But I think I'm still going to be very, very happy with the direction choices they made because it's going to be way more interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see these characters have flaws.
And especially because we all want to pretend that Luke, Leia, and Han had happy endings, but if they all did, these movies wouldn't exist. There would be no more plot to happen. So there'll be that little part of me that just wanted everyone to be happy, but I think I'm going to be very, very happy with how the directions they take this. And
it's just so much more interesting to have a character with flaws. Mm-hmm. I always have my, like, super problematic faves, and I'm like, this is my favorite character, and people are like,
you're talking to me, who's in love with Kylo Ren, so...
I mean, our favorites, you're like, but they're so problematic, and you're like, but it's so interesting. These characters have depth, and struggles, and conflicts, and that's makes them so much more appealing.
That's why fiction is such a great art form, because you can explore these character archetypes without any real people... getting hurt.
Yes.
So I'm going to bring up something that was going around on the internet. This is from Star Wars Theorist on Tumblr. They brought up that you can see different constellations in the stars. And I think this is so interesting. I don't know how much validity there is to this, but I looked into it, and it seems pretty valid. That behind Kylo, you see the constellation for Scorpio, and behind Luke, you see the constellation for Orion. Mm-hmm. And the mythology behind that is that basically the god sent a scorpion to go kill Orion, for Orion basically had issues with being too prideful and self-absorbed and into himself. Right. And basically sent the scorpion to kill him. And afterwards, they were both put into the stars. And half the year, the Scorpio chases Orion, and the other half of the year, just how this planets and stars work in our planet terms.
They're aligned.
Orion chases Scorpio. And I think that's a really cool message behind it all. And obviously...
it's super poetic.
Like, I don't think Kylo's going to kill Luke, but I think that's just more representative of killing Luke's spirit
killing
a bit.
The Luke that you knew in the first three movies. Basically.
Kind of... with the massacre of the Jedi Order, or I don't even want to say massacre. I think we were told not even to use the word massacre, but we'll talk about that when we get to the trailer.
The accident.
The incident, and Luke kind of disappearing. More talking about Luke's disappearance rather than his death, because I personally don't think we'll see Luke get killed.
No, I don't think so. At least not this movie.
No. And
it's called The Last Jedi, but I don't think that means, like, we're gonna kill The Last Jedi.
And honestly, I think if we see Luke die, it'll be kind of like a Lord of the Rings kind of death. It kind of, like, Yoda's it. Oh, yeah. And just, like, peace. I want to join the Force now. Yeah. I've done my work here. And, like, the end of the Lord of the Rings, where they just kind of walk to this other side. I'm like, well, I don't belong here anymore.
Bye.
I've seen too much. I
gotta go.
And, just other things to bring out. Interesting. Obviously the Starburst has been seen on the New Hope poster, but the Starburst is also kind of remnant of what Kylo's saber looks like. And I feel like they sort of have to be conscious of that just because...
Oh, absolutely. Because that's the first thing that
saber looked like.
It
looks like a merge between Anakin's saber and Kylo's saber, so it kind of is already this balance between them. And that's obviously what we've been rooting for. I'm glad they are really focusing on this storyline.
They are 100% with even just things that are said in the trailer that I'm like, they're not ignoring the plot of the prequels, and that makes me very happy. This is an arc. This is a story. Exactly. This is a world that you've been building, and
this is a story 40 years in the making.
You have to talk about the prequel.
And I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about Kylo not being redeemed, are only thinking of the sequel trilogy as those 3 movies. I'm like, you need to think of this story as 40 years in the making. Yeah. And Kylo dying unredeemed is
so sad.
Han dies for nothing. Yeah. The Skywalkers basically do everything they did,
but they still end up evil in the end.
It doesn't make sense for a story that they've been
the legacy essentially
for so long.
Ends with Vader then.
Yeah,
because Kylo is just a Vader allegory, and how sad that the Skywalker story would just end with, well, yeah, they became evil. They just couldn't help it. The last one, evil dead.
So. But yeah, the poster's beautiful. Anything else you want to say about the poster?
No, just look at those puppy dog eyes.
Oh, look how pretty he looks.
I'm not even nearly as in love with Kylo as you are, but when I look at those puppy dog eyes, and so much of me sees Anakin in that I'm just like, oh my god, I need him to get redeemed, because
that's why
Anakin had the fucking worst life. Born a slave, became a slave to the Jedi Order, became a slave to Palpatine. Finally gained his freedom only in death.
And that's why, I'll talk about this a little bit more in the trailer specifically, but with everything that we're seeing, we're quite seeing, at least in movie form, Anakin's story, on reverse.
Yes.
And we'll go move over to the trailer, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. So the first shot, basically, is what starts off looking like a starfield, and obviously I think this is intentional, because you're thinking you're in space, but actually it cuts down and it ends up being Rey, looking quite distressed, heavy breathing. She slams her hands down. It's very kind of reminiscent of the Force Awakens teaser where Finn is, you have this shot of the sand and then Finn bursts up and he's like,
I'm alive.
So, I personally am on the board with basically everybody else in thinking that Rey's probably just had another Force vision of sorts, and she's kind of waking up from it.
She's obviously felt the Force somehow in that shot.
And I'd be curious if... I'm only thinking this because we've seen so many things with Rey and water, if it ends with her sort of drowning, and that's why she's, gasping for breath. One, it could just be her being scared. But I do think they're going to bring up the plot line that Rey has never really been around water, so she doesn't know how to swim. And I think one of her... Either she will actually be thrown into the water at one point, or it's in a Force vision of sorts.
Because I definitely think, for me, as a director, I would say that she's... Because we've already established that, at least in our minds, that she has a connection with Kylo. That they have a Force bond. The best way, for me, is for her to be linked up with Kylo's dreams, and for Kylo to be having a kind of a flashback dream.
Oh.
And he's dreaming about, the last time, him and Luke probably saw each other or something.
That'd be
something
interesting.
Like that.
Yeah.
That's just what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh, she probably just woke up from a nightmare that actually happened that was in Luke and Kylo's past.
Because that would be really interesting if they have this kind of back and forth before they actually meet, where they're hooked up like that. So, especially situations like Kylo's going through, where it's kind of still physically affecting Rey in some way.
And he's gonna show up and she's gonna be like, I know all this shit about you. And I know that you're not
as
evil as you seem.
That's gonna happen some way. And so that's the first
just
shot.
My headcanon.
She's freaking out. But then, obviously, I'm just kind of like...
And then we see Lucasfilm?
Oh, what can
did
we break
mean?
down about this? So Luke starts talking, and I just want to applaud Mark Hamill on so many different levels about how good he sounded, like, because Mark Hamill, in his normal voice, doesn't sound much like Luke anymore. Mm-mm. But in this trailer...
But he's a voice actor.
He's a voice actor. He sounds like Luke again.
Yep.
But maybe I'll bring this up later, or maybe I'll just talk about it now. He sounds much different in the beginning than he does at the end. Mm-hmm. So a part of me wonders if this is actually from the Breathe, Just Breathe, Reach Out, Tell Me What Do You See? If this is from a flashback and he's just kind of edited together. Because this sounds like young Luke.
It does.
And the end of the movie sounds more like... It still sounds like Luke, but an older, gruffer Luke. And that's why people thought
it was
Kylo.
Because it kind of does sound like Kylo. The first words.
The first time we saw it, all of us thought it was Kylo. Mm-hmm. And luckily they replayed it for us. And you're just like, oh. And then, so we have some pretty shots of the island while Luke's telling Rey.
We assume.
To breathe.
Or could be the first time that he's teaching Ben. Who knows? This could be flashback.
The main reason I think that this trailer is misleading in terms of dialogue is because of the interview Daisy and Mark gave after the panel, and one of the interviewers was like, "So, is that you talking in the trailer to Mark?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's me. That's me in the trailer."
Obviously,
Luke speaks, and basically. She asks, "Well, are you talking to Rey in the trailer?" So, and they both kind of like have this awkward back and forth about it, and they don't say yes. They kind of go, "Well, it sounds like he's talking to." So
that's how they edited it.
They edited it. So either these are brand new lines for the teaser, which is very possible. That was in the TFA. The Force runs strong in my family. Like obviously that's just from.
The originals.
The originals, but it was slightly different for TFA.
Yeah. So it could just be brand new stuff that they added together to make the teaser trailer more interesting, but it could be lines that we never hear in the movie. Just like in, wasn't it in the Rogue One trailer too?
Oh, well, like, I rebel.
Yeah.
Thank God they took that out, though. So, I mean, obviously, I think the thematic is still, the thematicisms are still the same as in the trailer, whether or not these lines are in it or not. But I do find it interesting that Luke sounds so much different in the beginning of the trailer than he does at the end of the trailer. Mm-hmm. So we cut to a clip of Rey standing on a cliff of Act 2. Sun's either, I assume, going down. It looks like it's becoming night. Does. She's standing by the water. There's not much to break down from there.
Nah, she's like, yo, water.
Yo, water. It's kind of a looming shot.
It is.
So... something's probably...
It makes the tension high.
Yeah, and there have been, just so you know, we are going to talk about potential spoilers for the film. Obviously, we're making predictions, and if those happen to be right...
We were just
guessing. But we're also going to talk about rumors from other sources that have been pretty reliable in the past, so these might be actual spoilers. There was rumors a while back from Making Star Wars that Rey, at one point in the film, fights a sea monster, which... Exactly, my face too.
I hope not.
I feel like that's so stupid.
I really don't need that. This isn't.
I feel like it's dumb, but
it's very not Star Wars. The only thing like when you said that, I just flashed back to like an episode of like Avatar when they're like trying to cross the sea and the thing pops out and they just fight it.
Sounds interesting to me.
It just sounds like unneeded action shots, and I'm like, that's not what Star Wars is.
So a part of me hopes that this sea monster fight is more either a vision or like what I'll talk about later is the rumored is she's wearing her cape when she's fighting the sea monster, and she's obviously not wearing her cape here. She does have a cape, we've seen it, which I mean I love the echoing of Kylo and Rey's outfits, like how they always are like in sync with each other. First, like look at our wrappy armbands and our like neck scarves that we wear, and I know Rey only wears it in the beginning, but and even just the way her wraps hang and his dress hangs. Yeah. Now they're switching off that Kylo finally gets pants. Rey's also in pants and a vest, and but she gets a cloak, and cape thing, and Kylo also has a cape thing, which we have now officially seen in Battlefront in that one picture.
Oh, okay.
Like, side story before we go on, during the Last Jedi panel, I'm sitting next to my friend Mary, and they bring up the picture of the First Order, and me and her jump on each other because they for sure were teasing us a little bit, like Adam was about to come on stage, and none of us were expecting it, so that would have been a big twist. But they're like, speaking of the First Order, then a picture of the First Order guys come on screen. We're thinking for sure, but needless to say, didn't. But the whole room was like, right? It's gonna happen.
That's
now,
when
right?
Finn came out, right?
No, it's Calamari Chan came out.
Oh,
after that.
okay.
But Calamari Chan was just as delightful, but it was just...
You were like, Adam! No. He's too awkward.
Too awkward. And also, I think Kylo literally can't talk about anything about his character.
Oh, no.
I think his character is going to shock all of us. And I'll keep it moving. I'll talk about that later, but I will. I want to talk about what's in front of us right now. So she's basically in front of water. I think Rey's going to have this really interesting relationship with water. Obviously, you have that cute picture of her standing in the rain where she's like just feeling it, and it's so cute. But I think at first she'll really love it, and then she'll potentially have like a drowning scene, either in a vision or to a point where she actually becomes pretty afraid of it.
She's gonna have a line later on, be like, I hate water, it's all consuming, it's wet, it gets everywhere.
Not like you, Luke.
You're dry, old man. We're gonna be like, I'm having weird flashbacks right now.
This is weird.
The Force is telling me to, like, tell you to shut up.
So the next shot is, I assume, training sequence. It's Rey, like, with her hands touching the ground and the rocks sort of beginning to levitate.
Lift up rocks.
You can
Where have we seen that before?
You can see Han's gun in the background, which is
Aww.
just cute that she still has Han's gun. But the rocks are just beginning to levitate, which is kind of a flashback or callback to Empire, and her magical... So she talks about what she feels. Like, what do you feel in when you
Force.
reach out in the Force? Yeah. And she says light, and this is where I'm just gonna...
I know.
Light, and it's a picture of Leia, and you hear Rey's theme, but also in the background you hear "Help Me, Obi-Wan Kenobi," and you'll hear us talk about this every podcast.
Because we want it to happen so bad. Please have her be a Kenobi. I'm not holding my breath because I know I'll die.
Not at all. I don't think it'll happen in the slightest.
But I want it so bad.
They hinted so much that at this point that I think she's really honestly a nobody, and she probably has Imperial roots.
I want it though, Court.
But when they do stuff like this, like, what do you see? And it's Rey's theme, like Leia saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You're my only hope." Because he had sexual relations and made a grandchild. And she's the only one that can save Kylo.
It's just this... I mean, we'll talk about it again and again. What a beautiful... Gratuitous. Absolutely gratuitous. Yep. But I won't lie to you. I love gratuitous. Especially in something like this.
It depends. This is not, like, a gross, like, sexual gratuitous.
No. Gratuitous,
This is...
Callbacks and
just... favorite characters.
Like, fan service? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I can't even think of a good word for it. But basically...
Maybe a little pandering, maybe.
Maybe pandering's a better word.
Yeah. I'm like, maybe. But I want it.
I want it so badly. Even though I don't expect it. It would just be this great poetic ending. The Obi-Wan line and the Skywalker line have finally made peace with each other. And they realize that they need each other. And they're like, we're always gonna have to...
They finally balanced each other out.
Like, we need to balance each other. Like, we've always needed each other. And it'd be this kind of beautiful prequel to the ending story. Like, Obi-Wan... Like, Anakin, in a way, needed Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan needed Anakin. But then Obi-Wan had Luke. And Luke needed Obi-Wan. And it just kind of keeps going. Is that those families are always destined to, like...
Circle each other.
Ugh. And be there for each other eventually, because obviously the Skywalkers keep fucking up.
Yep.
So the next shot is a very interesting, and this is where I'm going to start talking about Anakin in reverse a little bit more, is what we thought originally the first time we saw it was Vader's helmet fully destroyed. This is Kylo's helmet, full out destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And he's surrounded by glass, which I wonder if it was in some sort of case or thrown. I guess it was thrown through something.
Maybe.
Or maybe that's just like the glass. That's just a lot of glass for just being the...
I think that it was in a case. Like, I'm picturing that it was in a case.
And
is what I'm picturing.
like,
He destroys it in one of his tantrums.
Yeah. And I think Kylo probably is the one who destroys it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of debacle and debate of, like, why it was destroyed, whether or not it was... He destroyed it because he's like, I'm full evil now.
Yeah.
I'm not really buying that one. I think he destroys it more out of frustration that he's still so torn when he thinks he shouldn't be. And so he sees this mask as, like, this reminder of his
what
weakness.
He's supposed to be and that he still can't live up to, and I think then he destroys it.
Especially because masks for the Sith have never represented weakness.
No.
And a lot of Sith characters wear them. Obviously, we have Darth Vader, and he idolizes Darth Vader. And to him, I don't think that mask represented weakness. Obviously, Vader needed that mask to live, but I don't think it represented weakness necessarily.
No,
and
never.
We have Revan,
and
who
it's such a good
also wore it
intimidation
for
tactic.
aesthetic reasons.
Yeah.
I don't think he is
Also,
like, I'm pure evil now.
Also, they're helmets, so, I mean, you do want to protect your head when you're fighting. Just saying.
All the stormtroopers and stuff wear them. I feel like it's more of a inner turmoil
For Kylo, absolutely.
for Kylo.
I mean,
we could be wrong, obviously. This could be his, I'm pure evil. I don't need to hide behind a mask anymore. But I feel like that goes against everything that they've built up so far. So, we're going back in time. So we start out, like, with the Vader and Kylo matchups. So we start off with the masked Vader. Like, we start off with Vader. And as far as Kylo goes. And then we slowly go back where now he has destroyed the helmet, and he's assumingly just not going to have a helmet anymore, but he has, like, the scar. So we're kind of going back to Revenge of the Sith Anakin.
Yep.
And I think it's interesting that we'll see these kind of parallels, which I'm hoping for. I'm not expecting it, but honestly, I've been very pleasantly surprised, because obviously the first thing that turned, or started to really turn Anakin to the dark side was his mother dying. And I think it would be a really interesting parallel to being the first thing to really turn Kylo back
would be
is his father dying.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of going backwards from there, and we're going to see these plot points play out in a sort of interesting reverse form. But yeah, we have a destroyed helmet, which hopefully he, like, again, I'm guessing it's just like a tantrum where he either is in a display case or he's wearing it at one point and just destroys it and throws it through a window. Yeah. Because he's just mad about something. But I personally don't think it's him being like, I'm 100% evil now. Just the darkest person that could ever be.
Now I have this edgy scar, and everyone will know that I'm evil now.
So then we go to another shot of the books.
The books.
There's books. And it looks like we're inside the Force tree right now. And I'll talk a lot about this, but I think there's going to be a huge, like, metaphor or, like, history callback to the Library of Alexandria. And so we have these books here. And for me, a lot of people have been counting them and have been counting 10. I'm only counting 9. And
I agree with you.
Because I think the first thing and the last thing are stones.
Are bookends, essentially.
Are bookends. And then there's 9 books there, which that's hew.
What else are there 9 of?
There's going to be 9 of these movies, in case I had to explain that. I mean, obviously, that can just be coincidental. Next shot, we see a gloved hand touching one of these books. And it looks like this book is just super old, maybe burned a little bit, which, again, I will talk about later in the trailer. This is a gloved hand, so it's pretty impossible to tell who it is. My vote, well, originally I thought it was Rey, because Rey is still talking, so... But looking at it, this is still taking place either on Octo 2 or somewhere else entirely. This is a gloved hand. This is Luke's gloved hand. Like, or what his hand
His metal hand.
His metal hand, honestly. Or his, what used to be his real hand, or at least skin hand that had metal underneath. That made sense.
It's called a mechno hand.
Thank you. I knew you knew.
Yep.
But...
Thank you, role-playing.
Yep. So we see someone, like, touching the page, and Rey does have scavenger gloves, but she just doesn't have them on the island unless she packed them in her bag, which is very possible.
Good.
Like, she could have put on her climbing gear and climbed up to see this. But to me, especially with the fact that it's gloved and it would be Luke's gloved
and just
hand.
look at the lighting of the shot. It feels like a flashback to me.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's, like, dark, it's ill-lit. It reeks flashback to me.
Mm-hmm. And so then we go to Rey swinging around her lightsaber. This is one of the shots that I assume the stockholders saw.
Oh, yeah.
Because they talked about... And, I mean, I'm just going to dismiss it right away. Yoda being on top of one of those rocks.
No.
I don't think it's Yoda at all. I think, basically, that's already been debunked, so...
If it was Yoda, he would be a Force ghost, and he wouldn't be... He'd be glowing blue, guys.
He'd be glowing. Well, he's around an ocean. Maybe we just can't see the glowy blue. But I think that's literally just a rock. And they like... Star Wars likes their misleading rocks. Like, everyone thought that gravestone.
No, it's just a rock,
Just
guys.
a rock, guys. That's just what Ireland looks like.
There's just a lot of rocks everywhere.
So...
Oh, I love this shot
This shot's beautiful!
Just the color balance between it. Like, I love it.
I want a poster of this world. So this world is actually called Crate.
Okay.
Crate. I'm gonna say Crate. Who knows? But Rian Johnson actually talked about this planet a little bit, and I should have brought up the quote, but I didn't, so I'm going to paraphrase. Basically, he says this is a kind of salt planet. It's a mining planet, and from what I've heard from him and what I've heard from other articles, that this is like a resistance planet, that some people are speculating that this is how it's a mining planet, and this is how the resistance gets their money. That basically they're mining the gas that comes out of the planet's surface.
Okay.
But as you can see, like,
I just love
in
that
the
it's
shot,
like blue sand, but
there's a bunch of
underneath is
walkers
red.
coming towards them.
You're right.
I assume this is going to be pretty in the beginning of the film, because I think it's going to be echoing Hoth, especially with the white color of the salt. I don't think there'll be a lot of plot parallels to Empire, besides the fact that the First Order is going to probably
win. Essentially win this movie.
Yeah.
I definitely think that this is when they're going to be at their strongest.
But I think this is probably one of the first big battles, but such a beautiful shot of these resistance guys.
Like sand or dust or whatever that they're kicking up.
Because at first I thought it was them dumping it onto the planet, but then it's clear that there's drills that are just...
Yeah.
And it's just such a pretty shot, and I can't wait to see what happens there. And if this gas might be toxic, and that's why they're using it against the Atwalkers that are coming.
But don't use us, like, I always assume, especially because we see in Rogue One, the Stormtrooper helmets, like, have to have a filtration system.
But,
don't they?
It's in Force Awakens where Finn talks about it. How the trooper helmets they filter out smoke, not poison.
Oh, okay.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Like, that's in the Force Awakens.
You're right. Forgot about that.
But I don't know what this gas does, but obviously they're bringing it out, and walkers are coming towards them, so something's happening there. And then now we have our one shot of Finn.
Hey, Finn!
Hey, Finn, what's up?
You look like you've seen better days, buddy.
And we obviously know Finn wakes up, so it's interesting he only has one shot in the teaser, but...
I think all those other scenes are going to be way too good, so they couldn't put it in.
Well, honestly, I think it's because there's a time skip. And showing Finn maybe doing too much was too obvious that there's a significant time skip. Yeah. But, like, obviously we start off right where
Rey left off.
Like,
literally 2 seconds ago. The scroll is going to be like 2 seconds ago. Rey arrived on Ahch-To and she held out her hand with this lightsaber. Let's go into the movie.
Yep. Kylo's in the hospital. Finn's in the hospital.
Yep.
Poe's over Finn, being like, wake up, buddy.
Buddy.
I fixed your jacket. My jacket. I fixed it for you.
But now it's for you. BB's here, too. BB's worried about you, and BB's like, BB!
And, like, Finn looks super sharp, so when we've seen photos of him in his new outfit.
Yeah.
So, I think, like, honestly, that's where I am right now with thinking with how little they're showing of Finn, is that he's going to be pretty unconscious for before the time skip. And then after the time skip, which God knows how long that would be. But again, I don't know if a time skip's happening. I'm saying I think there's a time skip because we know Rey has new hair and a new outfit.
Yeah.
And we don't see that at all in this trailer.
Unless there's a department store on Octu. I'm thinking... And they didn't show any of Space Vegas. And we've been almost confirmed as Space Vegas, right?
Space Vegas is 100%.
Yeah.
Canto Bite.
Yeah, Canto Bite.
Is 100% confirmed at this point.
So, we didn't see any of that in the trailer. Either. Nothing. No. Nothing that even looks sort of close to it,
So I think for sure there's going to be some sort of time skip where Rey obviously lets her hair down.
Yep.
And that's the easiest way to show time has changed is by your hair changing. I hate, but it's used so often. Koth Zuko, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yeah. It's such a big staple of where you are in your life, and
yeah. I mean, it's true. It's a stereotype for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Then next shot, we have 2 shots of Poe and BB-8 running towards his X-Wing, and leave poor Poe's X-Wing alone.
He's
2018.
Poor. He can't afford another X-Wing.
He's running towards it for some reason. Obviously, I think where they're ditching their base here. I'd be curious if this is also at the super beginning of the film, where they're still on Dakar and haven't left yet. Because obviously they're still on Dakar at the end of the film, because that's where Rey leaves from. And obviously the First Order knows where they are, and they weren't super rushed to leave. And there's a little time jump between Rey making it back and Rey leaving.
Yep, because C-3PO's arm was back.
Yeah, and that was supposed to symbolize...
Time has passed.
Time has passed. And both of them are in new outfits. I would say maybe 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
And it's obviously not a big time jump, but...
I was thinking at most like a week.
Like a week.
Honestly.
Has passed in that. And so they're not in a huge rush to move. So part of me thinks this is still on Dakar, and this is the First Order coming back and being like, we know where you are.
Yeah.
Make you guys leave. Because you see a bunch of guys leaving.
Why haven't you guys already left?
Yeah.
Essentially.
So I think this is them leaving. Again, we see... It starts off exactly where we left off. So I think we do need to see them leaving Dakar. And I think this is probably the First Order raid that makes them leave this planet. And now we have the Falcon!
Woo!
I personally think this is still on Octu. We know that the Falcon's on Octu. We also know that Chewbacca and R2 are on Octu, which no one ever talks about.
But they are.
They're going to be
and
there.
They're both very good pilots, so...
So we know that the Falcon lives still, because we had heard some rumors that the Falcon at one point sinks, but could be a Force vision. Obviously, they can retrieve it. It could be very much like the X-Wing that Luke raises on Dagobah.
Yeah.
Dagobah.
And I can't, it's too heavy.
And Rey's like, this thing's way bigger than an X-Wing! Luke, what the hell?
This is unfair! And he's like, yeah.
You could try. But the Millennium Falcon lives, and it's so
Did you guys really think they were going to get rid of the Millennium Falcon? I'm like, it's one of the most iconic things.
I don't think they'll ever get... I think there'll be some things that will always be in a Star Wars movie.
I'm like, it'll always...
It'll be like 3PO and R2, the Millennium Falcon. There's just Chewbacca.
If it's a main franchise movie, it's gonna be there. It makes them too much money, guys.
And it's... If they had to kill Han Solo...
Yeah.
You can't take away the Falcon. And so I think they're probably escaping Octu at this point. It'll be interesting to see who's necessarily on this ship, because I'm talking more about rumors. There's rumors that Rey and Luke don't even ever leave. I cough. I sort of have a source who has sort of hinted at me, just by what they have said to me, that Rey does make it back to the Resistance in
I definitely think so. I do think she's going to get off that. I don't have any speculation about Luke. I thought, when I saw this scene, I was thinking this is kind of like when Kylo shows up on Octu, and he shows up with
Because there
like,
are
a little
TIE
bit of a
fighters,
squad.
yeah. There's TIE fighters coming.
He has this like little squad, and Chewie and R2 are taking that out, while maybe like Rey and Kylo and Luke are confronting each other.
Mm-hmm. And this, like, that's very possible. But if this is when they're leaving,
Yeah.
a part of me wonders if, just because Rian Johnson has had some films that he says he's inspired, was inspired by for Last Jedi, and some of these films involve a bunch of people stranded together that don't want to be together.
Yeah.
A part of me wonders if this is like a rescue team to come get Kylo, like the First Order team finally finding them, and that they've been on this island for a long time, and they can't get off for some reason. Kylo's kind of stuck there. Which, it'd be really interesting to see how they pace out, but also pretty excited about it. Who knows if that has any validity to it?
Because I was thinking this might be how they get stuck, because... So he takes out all the TIE fighters. Chewie takes out all the TIE fighters. But maybe the Falcon gets damaged in the process. And then they have to work on it.
Yeah.
Essentially. And that's
And like
Kylo's stuck.
maybe even this is when it sinks.
Yeah, maybe.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Falcon would ever be gone for good.
No.
I would be pretty sad about it. If it did happen, obviously it wouldn't ruin Star Wars for me.
This is where it sinks, and then it's too heavy for one Jedi alone, and then Rey and Kylo both have to work together to lift it out.
Teamwork! High five.
It's very Avatar The Last Airbender.
Very much. Next shot. This is clearly Rey. We know that... I shouldn't say we know. From the rumors, Kylo and his squad show up at sundown. That's their poetic way.
It's so poetic.
And so this is... I mean, this could be sunrise, but it kind of looks like it's being night, where Rey is charging at someone.
It definitely does look like sundown, not
Yeah,
sunrise.
I think she's clearly charging somebody, and I don't think it's a training exercise. It could be a force vision of sorts, but then we get to Kylo, where there's a bunch of fire in the background. We know there's a force tree on Octu. More rumors have speculated that this tree is burned, and obviously we can suspect that Kylo's the one who does it. That obviously he does not like something in there. Something to do with this Jedi knowledge. But we have our first shot and only shot of Kylo in the trailer, and we see that his scar has moved, and he looks more like Anakin, and he looks great. A+ hair.
He's like, here I am. I found a picture of my grandpa, and I was like, oh my gosh.
I'm laughing so hard because someone was saying that he thought Kylo had Sith eyes in this. I'm like, clearly not.
Absolutely not. And I don't think he's ever going to, because how many times do they have to say that they're not Sith?
And so you can see Kylo's lightsaber, but also I'm looking at it like really closely. There is like this little streak of blue at the top, and I'm only looking at it this closely because I've heard people talk about it.
Oh, I mean, I assume it's
where
Rey's lightsaber.
It could be Rey, coming from the other side, and I think that could be a pretty safe assumption.
He's totally doing like the "come at me, bro" pose.
But what if his hand is doing like the Obi-Wan? He's doing the Obi-Wan.
I don't think so, but
no,
maybe
he's doing the Obi-Wan. That's what I would
Well,
give.
no, because Obi-Wan does this. The saber would be behind his head.
Oh,
it wouldn't be in front.
He's
doing the opposite.
He's doing the opposite.
He's got the saber in front, 2 fingers in the back.
Yeah.
And Rey's like, what are those fingers? And he's like, I don't know! Don't talk to me about
my
it!
My namesake did it! I don't get it!
I don't know, it was part of the forms!
Yep, and then here we get to, again, assuming this is a flashback to when Kylo destroyed the destruction of Luke's academy. And to me, this is, like I mentioned before, unbelievably symbolic of the burning of the Library of Alexandria. And where basically Luke has spent a lifetime gathering all of this knowledge, all of these artifacts, all of these Jedi knowledge. And that's more where the destruction comes from, rather than, like, obviously people died, Luke's students and acolytes died. But I think Kylo's bigger crime here is destroying all of this
millennia's worth of knowledge.
And
like every Jedi codex that he could find, or whatever they call them in
these
Star Wars world.
Like they have like the Journal of the Wills and all of these artifacts, and I think they
maybe
found
some
something.
holograms.
It's interesting because I'm going about this scene in so many different ways, where it kind of looks like Luke's coming back from something, like Luke was gone and he came back and saw this.
And then it was burnt, and he was like, oh, shit.
But this is where, mind you, we know we're tinfoil hats everywhere. But what happened to Luke's hand? Luke had a normal hand.
Yep.
Like, his hand was skinned.
He had a much better looking hand than Anakin did, and now it looks even worse than Anakin.
And now it's fully mechanical, and I'm trying to think, like, how would that skin go? I think, obviously, it burned. Mm-hmm. Where my tinfoil hat mind is taking me right now is Luke went in to try to save stuff, and that's how his hand, like, burned off, is that he went in to try to save maybe those books, like that we saw early in the trailer. Or a book, or something, that he went in to save something, or someone even. But maybe he even grabbed Ben out of there, who, I assume he's going in for the books, or some relic. And that's how his hand gets burned. And we know that Luke has, or I shouldn't say we know, because it was a Force vision, so it can be a little, like...
Who knows? Depends on where, what point of view, blah, blah, blah.
But... in The Force Awakens, when we saw Rey's version of this, when Luke puts his hand on R2, it's already the metal hand.
Yes.
So, there's so much speculation here. I think Luke and Kylo found something. Luke and Ben, even at the time, found something that they were like, no one should know this. This is, like, very dangerous information for people to know. Or that even freaked them out, shook their faith somehow. I don't even know if we'll ever find out what it was. Because it could even be some, like, key to immortality or something. Even though we know that the Jedi technically have this key. Or some secret of the Jedi that... basically, they found out something that shook their core. And I think Kylo's destruction... is more about the destruction of the information rather than...
Destruction of people.
Destruction of people. I mean...
like, that was a casualty of him destroying
everything in there. Like, he burned it with everyone inside. But we'll have to see. But I do think this sort of burning of the library symbolism thing is very actually tying to our times where we try to hide facts and science... and also,
it's better that some people
one of the biggest
notice.
tragedies of all of history. And Luke has obviously spent a lifetime building all of this and finding all of this just to have it all destroyed. And seeing that the old book that we saw earlier even had some burn marks in it.
Might be what he went in to save.
Might be what he's trying to save. Because I think, obviously, I just shouldn't say obviously, the one thing that I'm willing to bet some money on is that Luke's hand is a metal hand is because he went into that fire to try to get something. Which
part of me is like, Luke, you have the Force. Can't you Accio book to you?
Accio book! He went in there to get something that he couldn't just Accio. Something went in there. There was even a little part of me, I don't actually think this, that wonders if even Luke was the one who was more part of this than he's letting on.
We shall see. This Luke character in this movie is going to be a completely different Luke than we've ever seen. So, at least I
could talk
like
about what I think are like the ways I can think they can take the killing, the ending of the Jedi teaching, or what because we were told not to use the term academy. Be careful using that word. I don't know how to well, I'm just going to call it an academy just for.
Makes more sense. Like, what else are you gonna call it? Like
just like Gray
church?
Jedi, cough. It's an easy blanket term. Anyway, but that'll be another day.
Could have a whole podcast just on that.
Honestly, that might be Fridays. So we kind of have the destruction of Luke's academy, where I'm gonna throw around where my current headspace is that Luke's gone looking for something else, that he's found out something else that he's going to go look for. And he's just like, hey, Ben, you're in charge. And Ben's like, okay, cool, got this. And this is when, in the timeline, Leia sends the message to Ben telling him that Darth Vader's his grandfather. And that the whole galaxy now knows. And it's really going to suck.
Yeah.
We don't know what Leia says in her message exactly to Ben, and we don't know if it even makes it to him. But I think it would be really heartbreaking if Ben gets that message
while Luke's not there.
While he's alone. And I have so much I want to talk about, and it hurts, and this podcast is going to be so long.
Because part of me is also wondering if, obviously, Luke found something that tells him that the Jedi Order needs to end. And I'm kind of can't help but wonder if it was in one of these books. Who knows exactly what it was. And as Ben's left alone and just kind of like, maybe doing a little bit of snooping, he finds it, reads the information, and his faith is so shook that he just doesn't know what to do, and he loses his balance.
And like, talking further about Bloodline, Leia gets really worried for Luke and Ben because she knows how the government's treating her, and she's like, how are they going to treat the Force-sensitive ones? Because she kept her Force sensitivity pretty secret.
Right.
And she's like, how are they going to treat Luke, who's raising a new generation of Jedi?
Yeah, and maybe even the students found
maybe
out.
his students found out and turned against him. And because if what would you do if you were learning from this guy that ended up being like the kid of the person who destroyed millions of lives,
who was Hitler's son,
basically,
and he was training you to learn how to fight?
There's just so many ways to go about this that could be so interesting. That, again, tinfoil hat, absolutely crazy person, and it could be way less complicated, but
there's so much depth that could be here.
There's so much. And, like, the fact that, like, if the students turned on Ben, because I do think Luke became a bit of a purist, where he didn't know the full story of the Jedi, and he kind of became obsessed with these teachings. And even though this is where I think Mark Hamill's quote about kind of disagreeing where Luke went comes in, because I think, obviously,
he started following the teachings to like a T.
To a T, where he decided to cut off attachments. And I think Mark Hamill, would disagree with that. Because I think, obviously, Han and Leia mean so much to Luke. But when you think about the books,
and you think about where
and how absent Luke has been, and absolutely gone, and how no one knows what he's doing, I think he's a little bit following the teachings and becoming obsessed with them and following them too well, to the point where he's going to cause a lot more destruction than's worth, where he's basically cutting off his attachments, and where obviously the thing
that was the downfall of the Jedi Order.
Ben needed, Kid and Ben, was somebody to want him around.
His family.
And I think this is what's so beautiful about the Jedi, and especially the Jedi we follow, especially, is that they're taught to not have attachments, but at the same time, all the Jedi that we know have dedicated their lives to a person or a people. Like, Obi-Wan dedicated his whole life to Luke.
Yep.
And Anakin dedicated everything he had to Padme. And then when he lost Padme, he had nothing to live for. So it's interesting thinking that if these people who are told to not have attachments lose the thing that they've been living for, what can happen to them. And
it's so...
I don't think Kylo ever had that thing of...
No, he didn't, because
something he could dedicate
He always
himself
felt
to.
like, essentially, that both his parents kind of abandoned him.
Yeah. And sent him off to his uncle.
Yeah, and then Luke's also like, well, you're my nephew, but here, that doesn't matter. Here, all my students are exactly the same, and you guys, whatever. I know
and
that
the
Jedi
teachings, Jedi teachings have taught us that these attachments just hold us back.
Yeah, and no one life is more important than the other, and things like that. And Ben's like, nobody cares about me.
This sucks.
My parents sent me away.
Because I'm guessing in the way, he's like Anakin, where he wants to like
feel a connection.
Feel
somewhere.
a connection to something, someone,
because it's normal human behavior.
and obviously even Luke had, like, Han and Leia that he felt this connection to, and so that's why I think Kylo's gonna be really interesting, especially when it comes to his developments with Rey, which is obviously canonically is a person that he feels connected to, and feels compassion for, and this very well could be one of the first people he's ever felt that for, and he's just like, I don't know how to do this.
Is this the thing that I've been wanting for so long?
Is this...
Holy crap, like, human connection? And I'm excited for it, because I want this movie to be exploring that, because my biggest problem with the Jedi Order my entire life has always been when they're like, well, you're not allowed to love. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me, because love is, like, the purest emotion in my mind. I'm like, can it lead to bad things? Yes, but everything can. And it's about finding that balance. And I think that it's wrong to cut something like that out of your life, because I feel like in every case where humans are told that they can't do something for so long, that only makes it worse later on in life. You get people who are brought up in, like, extremist religious backgrounds, and then they get freedom from it, and then they go crazy. And they, like, essentially destroy their lives because they never knew the moderation. So they go from 0 to 100, and then could potentially, like, destroy their lives.
Yeah, it's definitely... They can do some really cool, like, nuanced stuff with this movie, and how emotion and repressing of emotion and can really affect somebody.
And how it's just not good.
Not good.
Let people express themselves.
So, moving forward, we have a shot of Phasma, and I think this is the more of the beginning of the film.
Phasma's in the trailer?
Yeah, Phasma's in the trailer.
Oh. I don't think
she's just, like, walking in with stormtroopers.
Okay, it must have just been so fast.
It was very fast.
Yeah.
It's also in a bunch of fire.
Okay.
I think this is probably the first, like, wave of... I think this is still probably on Dakar. Yeah. I'm guessing Dakar, where the first order comes to clear them out. And
Phasma's like, you thought I got trash compacted, huh? No, I can literally... No. I can literally talk to everybody I want to through my headset. So I was fine.
We're good. Then... I mean, obviously, space battles is not what we're here to talk about.
Pew pew pew.
Pew 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 pew. Lots of space battles.
It looks cool.
Looks very cool. And that's the only thing that I think might be later in the movies. Or maybe that's still when they're leaving Dakar and there's, like, a big battle right in the beginning. Start off. I'm dying. And last but not least, we have a shot of Luke Skywalker standing in a cave, saying...
He's silhouetted. He's backlit.
Oh,
just a silhouette.
Because, like, when Kylo's on screen, he starts saying, I only know one truth. Which everyone thought... Not everyone, but the first time we saw the trailer...
It's very misleading.
It sounds kind of like Kylo.
It does.
But
because it's the
much
new
more
Luke
clear
voice.
this is... Yeah, it's the new Luke voice. I do think his voice sort of changes. But also, it could be my brain playing tricks on me because Kylo's on screen, so it makes you think.
It really does sound like Kylo.
But this sounds like a bit of a
pretty
gruffer
good
Luke.
with voices.
And
like, to
you
me,
are really good with voices.
I definitely thought it was Kylo the first time. And now I'm like, okay, well, I can hear the difference.
Luke. But he's like, I only know one truth. It's time for the Jedi to end. No, I couldn't even, like, finish the line.
You couldn't. You got choked up. It's got nothing to do with you being sick and everything to do with the emotions.
Exactly. It's just so beautiful. Which, this is the story I want to see.
Yes.
40 years in the making.
Yes.
Pay attention to the prequels. The Jedi were also not good people.
Yeah. They also have their problems. I don't think that they're going to erase this term Jedi. Because, again, it's like the Falcon. I'm like, it makes them so much money. They're never going to get rid of it. I think that they're just going to alter the teachings, is what I assume.
Exactly. And that's kind of where the term, like, Gray Jedi came from. Yeah. I don't think the term Gray Jedi is going to be canon.
They're not going to start walking around and be like, oh, you're a Jedi. No, I'm a Gray Jedi? No.
No, it's just that the Jedi teachings basically, or they'll come up with a new name entirely. Like, there's... Like, the wills?
They could, but I really think that they won't because it's too much of a moneymaker. It's too much of an IP.
I don't think so either. I think it would be strange for them. I wouldn't mind it if they did.
Me neither.
But
I would prefer it, but realistically.
It depends on really if they're really planning on stopping at 9. I don't think they're going to shut that door.
Mm-mm.
That's why I'm pretty sure Kylo's going to live through this. And it's literally only because they're not going to shut out potential. Even if they don't make anything after 9, I don't think they're ready to say never on this. And at that point, if Kylo dies, because if you're new to the podcast, both of us are we don't think Rey is a Skywalker whatsoever.
Very convinced she's not a Skywalker.
So Kylo clearly has to live for them to be more Skywalker trilogy movies.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the only way they could kill Kylo and yet make another trilogy movie is like cloning someone, which is possible.
It is possible, but I hope not.
I hope not. And I think killing Kylo is kind of against the overall message of Star Wars, personally. I know a lot of people can't forgive Kylo for Han, but I think they're going to be able to work with it, that Han basically sacrificed himself for his son.
I think people need to realize that Han's death happened for a multitude of reasons.
Yes.
One of them being that Harrison Ford didn't want to do the movies anymore. So they need to calm down. There's a lot of rabid Han Solo fans.
And like Han wanted to die in Return of the Jedi. So.
Yeah, let's be serious. How beautiful is it that Han Solo had a death that was a self-sacrificial death instead of a selfish death?
Because that Han in the whole first movies was just like, I don't care what happens to anybody else as long as I make it out alive.
Better her than me.
And I think it's beautiful that at the end he sacrifices himself for his son.
He says, his death was, I'll literally do anything if you
I
think it will help you.
Too many people are thinking about Kylo murdering his father, when I think it's more Han sacrificing himself for his son. Because I don't think Han went on that bridge knowing he was going to die. But I think a part of him knew he was either going to die or bring his son back. And
he knew something was going to happen.
And even in the books, he was like, I guess if this is what you have to do, I hope this brings you peace. Because I see that you're falling apart, you're a mess. So if this is what I can do, I hope this brings you peace. And I'm like, in the children's novelization, which I wish this was in the adult novelization, if I can even speak, his Han's dying thoughts are like, Han was able to forgive his son. He just hoped one day his son was able to forgive him. Yep. And I'm like, that's the message. That's the message
I see.
And if Kylo dies unredeemed, Han dies for nothing.
Yeah. And that's when I'll be like, well, that was... Now I see what people were so mad about. Because I do feel like it's definitely part of a larger picture. And I think a lot of people aren't able to see that because they're blinded by their love for Han Solo. And also just because we analyze things way more. I was devastated
about it. I cried when I found out because it was spoiled for me. And... yeah, I just think there's a much bigger picture going on, like you said. And it's more than just Kylo killing his father. Yeah. Right now, that might be what we see, and that might be what Kylo feels. But... let's
give Star Wars a little bit more credit for right now.
This was a task given to Kylo essentially by Snoke. And essentially Snoke does not trust Kylo whatsoever. I mean, he has a tracker built into his belt. They don't trust this man.
Right. They have Jedi riot police, but the only Jedi that we know that is living, one is missing, and the other one is... Kylo's not a Jedi, but he fights with a lightsaber.
They have, saber-resistant...
police, yeah.
Yeah. So, I just think there's going to be a lot more going on with this story, and we need to think of Han's death as more of a sacrifice for the greater good, rather than a death for no purpose whatsoever. Yeah. Anyway... so, Luke thinks that it's time for the Jedi to end.
I agree.
I think the teachings need to be adjusted. Yes. I think that the teachings that they were giving people were destroying them. We're probably destroying his students a little bit on the inside. Obviously destroyed his nephew. We're not able to... I think Luke was living a little too hard by the code. And...
I think when you have laws like that, you are only guiding people towards... resistance, if that makes sense. Those teachings only further inspire people like Sith to happen. It's only going to lead to people then fully embracing the things that you tell them that they're not allowed to do.
Yeah.
okay, I'm not allowed to love, well, then I'm only gonna know passion. Like, that's the only thing I'll know. I'll never know how to have a healthy love. It's the
balance.
It's the Anakin story. Because he was told that he couldn't ever have anything, he clung so hard that he destroyed the thing that he loved the most.
Mm-hmm. So I think they're gonna come to terms with knowing that, like, the light can't exist without darkness, that there's always going to be some of the other in you.
If you're only going to have white, black also has to exist.
Yes.
So if we exist somewhere in this gray spectrum, and we don't have these extremes,
and it'll be interesting to see how they take it, of whether or not you yourself need to be balanced, or if you need someone else to balance you.
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting, yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see how they take that. But that's the end of the trailer.
Yep. And
teaser, I should say.
The trailer is 2 minutes and 12 seconds long, and we talked for over an hour, breaking it down.
Wow. Yep. And there's even so much more I want to say, but I'll save that. On Friday, we're going to do a final recap podcast of everything this week.
Everything we weren't able to touch on because it would just be too long.
Oh, just absolutely too long. And most of our podcasts are about 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Give or take?
Probably.
But I'm so excited for this film. And I think I will talk a little bit about this, because they announced today, or that when episode 9's coming out, and episode 9 is actually coming out much earlier than expected, like 6 months earlier, more than that, or 7 months earlier than we thought.
Yep.
Which part of me is like, yay, but part of me is super nervous.
Yeah, I'm nervous.
I'm mostly nervous.
Because I'd rather things
them take their time.
Take your
and
time.
Make it right.
It's fine.
And the other piece of news is we had been under the impression that Rian Johnson was also part of the story treatment team for episode 9, and he just said that's not true, and he hasn't been part of 9 at all.
Which also makes me nervous, because if you're going to have someone building a story, why, I want them to be there to help follow through. I will say,
this is what I hope. Because they have Colin Trevorrow for episode 9, and he is not, I mean, he's known for Jurassic World.
He did Jurassic World, guys.
Jurassic World wasn't the worst thing in the world, but
it's not. But I don't think it's.
It's not very nuanced, and I feel like the story they're trying to tell in 8 is going to be so, like, interesting and walking this gray area. Mm-hmm. So there's a part of me who really honestly thinks Kylo might come back in 8, only because of, like, the direction choice. Because I'm not sure Colin Trevorrow will be able to
tell a story like that. They would
choose to
continue this epic, nuanced story of a character coming to light and his internal struggle and all of these things that, no offense to Jurassic World, didn't see a lot of that. No. Didn't see a lot of internal struggle. Didn't see a lot of character growth or development. Not really.
So, like, I'm thinking that Colin will basically, he's there for the final war movie, mm-hmm. and it's not going to have a lot of character struggle or depth in it. Yeah. Which, I mean, I'm all about character plot lines, so that bums me out a little bit.
Yeah.
But if Kylo comes back sooner, I'd love to see a whole more with Kylo on the right side. Mm-hmm. So I'm not actually going to complain about that. Will that surprise me? Absolutely. I don't think... I just given how movies work, I wouldn't think Kylo would come back until 9. Mm-hmm. That it's like not during the final moments. But again, that's Vader. So maybe they're just they don't want him to be a complete copy off Vader.
Which, I mean, I don't want any of these characters to 100% walk the path of someone from the original or prequel trilogies. I don't want that. That's why I want Kylo to have, like, a full redemption and not a half-assed one in the end. Because I don't want him to be a Vader like that.
So it would be super interesting if what I always assumed, Kylo would be, quote-unquote, more evil in this movie, where he's actually way more torn apart, and we actually get... Like, right now, my sort of prediction for the end of this movie is Snoke kicks Kylo to the curb, like, because he manages to get Rey, and he's like, I want this one instead. Mm-hmm. You failed me, like, one too many times. Mm-hmm. You have your stupid family, and compassion that you keep feeling.
You just can't let it go.
And then he's like, Rey has no one to live for, so I can
just make her mad.
Yep. There you go. I'm gonna take her.
Super easy.
And that's how it ends, is that Kylo's... And basically, the Resistance just takes Kylo back, and...
Because how easy would it be for Snoke to be like, look at this fucking kid, look at this kid. He had a mom, he had a dad, he had an uncle, he had all these Force powers, and he literally threw it all away. You've had nothing.
Yeah.
You've had nothing your entire life. You lived alone. Doesn't that make you mad? Isn't this guy, like, the worst? Don't you just kind of want to kill him?
And the fact that he would much be able... Because what's holding Kylo back right now is his... And he even knows this, is his attachment to his family. Mm-hmm. And Snoke can easily try to abuse... knowing Rey doesn't have that.
Yeah. He killed Han.
She doesn't have the attachments that Kylo has. And so he can think that...
She sort of started
she's
to
kind of a
them.
better...
Yeah.
She's kind of a better template...
Yeah.
For him when he thought it was Kylo, because... He comes from this legacy. He's like, oh no, I need this blank slate. Mm-hmm. And yeah, she did sort of start to form them in TFA.
Yeah, but Kylo destroyed them, where she was like, oh, here's Han Solo. Maybe he could be mine. And then he was like, kill him.
If he wants to be my dad, he's not going to be yours!
You can't be anybody's dad!
But...
I won't let you have my dad, because he wasn't a very good dad, but I also don't want anybody else to have him as a dad.
That was unfair to me.
That's not fair. Just because you're pretty with hair bobbles, I could have hair bobbles.
Because of your
dibbly hair bobbles.
He like wears hair bobbles. He like comes on and he has like his little Ray buns.
He just walks in one day as a little bee and he's got Leia buns going on and Han's like, get those stupid things out of your hair, and he's like, but don't you want to?
I'm gorgeous.
Look at my hair, don't I?
Hair toss. Anyway, so I think that's where we're gonna end off for today.
Yep.
Be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes. If you want to listen to our podcast early, they're all going on iTunes early. Yes. It's just on YouTube that they're going up every day. Mm-hmm. So we're doing a new podcast every day this week. Mm-hmm. And next week is merch week, where we're going to show off all the nice merch that we got at Celebration.
We're going to shove it in your face.
And then after that, we're going back to normal uploads.
Yep.
But just there's
probably
so much
be
to
Star
talk
Wars
about.
Related for a little bit.
Oh yeah,
let's be real.
I'm never gonna stop talking about it, and by now and soon we're just gonna get a constant stream of great stuff and all the news and oh my god. Anyway, thank you guys for listening and tuning in. Let us know what you guys think down below. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes, on YouTube, wherever you're listening to us.
Give us likes or reviews or wherever you're listening.
We're desperate for attention and love, just like Kylo.
Validate us.
That's what we need. And thanks guys for listening. Talk to you later. Bye.